2015 was a wild year for TNA. Between financial instability and declining TV ratings, fan interest was just at an all-time low. Part of this went into the questionable creative decisions, as well as the heavy reliance on pre-taped episodes, which were taped so far in advance that it was honestly hard to get invested in the product. I remember being a hardcore wrestling fan as a 14-year-old, always looking for the pages and pages of spoilers that would come out of the week-long taping cycle at Universal Studios. Typically, these would come and go, with not much to get excited about through these reports. But they were spoilers nonetheless. I guess there was enough interest there to inform the people before it even aired, which could be months at a time. And TNA, like any wrestling company, tried to work around the constant spoiling of their shows. They seemed to embrace this one day when reports of TNA Genesis making its return in 2015. It is the announced card that caught many people's attention and had people confused, skeptical, and kind of believing that this would happen. I don't know why, but let's get into it. So each match was announced by Jeremy Borash over the live microphone. None of these announcements made television, but people still believed that this could make air one day. The first match announced was Jesse Goddard versus Al Snow in an Elevation X match. Now, the Elevation X match is one of the weirder TNA match stipulations, and had only been done twice prior to this. It's essentially a scaffold match with a fancy X design. Pretty aesthetically pleasing, but doesn't make for the most conventional match. And who's in this? Jesse Goddard, the reality TV guy, against Al Snow? It's 2015. I don't think Al Snow is going to be falling off a scaffold. It's a pretty hard to believe match, but TNA was crazy at this time, so maybe this was in the plans. Then Jeremy Borash announced the return of Barbed Wire Massacre. Heavy on the stipulations for this Genesis card, Barbed Wire Massacre is back, and of course, it featured Abyss for the third time in a row. He would be going against Tigre Uno, the X Division champion. Well, I guess X stands for Extreme now, and Tigre Uno is going to be in a barbed wire match. Okay, this really doesn't align with anything they've been doing on television. I don't know what prompted this match to get a Barbed Wire Massacre stipulation, but it sounds kind of neat, I guess. This card is starting to sound a little fishy. The next announcement was Aiden O'Shea versus Simon Diamond in a Shamrock Street fight. Okay, there is a lot to unpack here. Aiden O'Shea was formerly known as Jay Bradley in TNA, but was repackaged as an Irish thug for some reason. He really hadn't had much TV time at all, but now he was booked for the TNA Genesis pay-per-view card, or whatever this is, against Simon Diamond nonetheless, or Pat Kenny as he was really known, because that's his real name, and he was not wrestling at this time. He was long retired. He was just doing agenting work for TNA. Okay, this is probably the craziest one announced yet, and that's saying something. Also, who asked for this? Nobody even knows who Aiden O'Shea is, and I don't think Pat Kenny wants to see Simon Diamond wrestle in 2015. Also, they're having an Irish street fight. Well, kudos to that. I guess there are some Irish roots there. But I mean, this is pretty random. Are we supposed to believe that all of these matches are happening? Well, message boards kind of did. They probably didn't really watch the product regularly, to be fair, but that doesn't excuse the fact that they're publicly confused as to how this could possibly be happening. It seems like common sense would tell you, this is not a real wrestling card, this is a joke. Well, we can't be certain. And the joke would continue with the next match announcement, which really isn't that crazy on paper. It's Koya, or Mahabali Shera, versus Tommy Dreamer. I love that this one is the only match that doesn't sound completely ridiculous. Someone in the back just thought it would be funny to tease dirt sheets and fans by telling them that Koya and Tommy Dreamer would be having a singles pay-per-view match, which, that is pretty terrifying. But this is the only match that could have actually occurred, and I am glad it didn't. All the other announcements, they felt the need to stick some crazy stipulation in there to make it as outrageous as possible. For this one, they thought it was insane enough just to book this singles match in the first place. And now for the crown jewel of absurdity. If there is a main event to this TNA Genesis card, it is undeniably the reported Tyrus versus Bigfoot. Yes, that guy. And I know what you're thinking, this sounds absolutely ridiculous. Tyrus shouldn't be in a main event. All jokes aside, TNA had announced Bigfoot would be in a match with Tyrus. At the time, Tyrus was EC3's henchman, and there seemed to be an angle promoting this match. Bigfoot confronted EC3, leading to the announcement of this gem. It's reported that Matt Hardy was in the Bigfoot costume, which we know he has a lot of range. But are we really gonna watch Brodus Clay wrestle Bigfoot? Well, 14-year-old me was quite intrigued. I was praying this was real. This sounds absolutely ridiculous. And many of the talents in TNA felt the same way. It's pretty clear that they put this out as a troll attempt, or as it would be known in wrestling, a rib. Bob Ryder of TNA would joke about this, quoted to be messing with spoiler readers just for the hell of it. Ryder was often a huge defender of TNA online, so it's clear that this could have stemmed from him. Jeremy Borash would make these announcements over the live mic, which could be easily edited out during post-production, which they were. These matches were never intended to air, unfortunately. But that didn't stop the internet from saying LOL TNA, I can't believe they're doing Al Snow versus Jesse Goddard in a scaffold match. Or just Mahabali Shera and Tommy Dreamer, period. But I mean, if you follow any ounce of the product, you know that this wasn't gonna happen. I know TNA didn't have Emmy award-winning storytelling at the time, but this has less context than usual. So you're probably asking, what was the point of this? Why did TNA waste so much time and energy on just working the dirt sheets and spoiler readers? Well, honestly, they were probably bored. TNA was taping like 7 days at a time here. Literal months of television in a few days. The atmosphere at these shows is just dreadful and some of the most dead TNA programming of all time. Bigfoot versus Tyrus might have been their version of stress relief. I'm sure a lot of the boys got a good laugh out of reading some of these message board comments, reacting to this TNA Genesis card. Some were skeptical of its authenticity, others were hyped by the sheer absurdity of it all, me included. And it kind of fit TNA's reputation of being random and unpredictable, which is what we love about it. Now, if this show actually aired, it would have been a classic or a complete disaster, or both. At the end of the day, whether it was a troll or a misunderstanding, Genesis 2015 is one of those spoilers that I will never forget. Would you have watched Bigfoot versus Tyrus? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe and like for more content.